back, everybody, to another episode of Success After Trauma, where we bring guests on and we talk about their story, some of the traumas that they've been through, what the transition was like for them, and how they're creating success today in their life. Because no matter where you're at on your journey, someone is one chapter behind you, and they need exactly what you have. So today we brought on our guest and is a special friend of mine. It's Roxanna. Roxanna is a home birth midwife as well as an NLP trainer. I met Roxanna going through the NLP trainer program last year in, were we Henderson, Nevada? Does that sound right, Roxanna?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Roxanna truly imprinted on me. She's an incredible human. You're going to hear a little bit about her story here. I don't want to steer too much of her thunder. Roxanna, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, a short little intro?
Sure, you bet. So currently I'm a home birth midwife in the state of Utah. It means I deliver babies out of the hospital, at home, and in birth centers. I'm a mom of 3 beautiful girls, and I'm also widowed. And that's where I'm at.
Tell us a little bit about, I'm curious, because how did you get into, what was the calling into becoming a home birth midwife?
So I was 16 years old, sitting after seminary study, church studies, right? And I'm sitting there reading my scriptures, and I just feel this impression that I'm going to be having babies at home. And got married, moved from California to Utah. And long story short, on Monday, I called to find out about a master herbalist training. I wanted to know how to help people with herbs right off the grid, off land.
So this is
And
at 16 years old?
this is now at 23.
Oh, got it.
So fast forward a few years.
Got it.
And I asked the school what other classes they had, and they said they had a midwifery program. And I'm like, tell me about that. They said, well, classes, this is Monday afternoon, like at 4:30 p.m. They said, well, we have a class starting on Wednesday morning. I said, I'll be there.
Wow.
I'll be there.
You felt called from this very early on, huh? So take me a little bit through the journey before we'll take a step back here in a minute, but take me a little bit through the journey when you showed up. What were you thinking? Was there, as you went through the earlier stages of that journey, did you ever feel any reservations, or did you always know where you were supposed to be?
As far as midwifery goes, the
Mhm.
day I arrived in class, I was all hands on deck. And driving home, I felt like I was home.
Wow.
I felt like I had landed on the place that would fulfill my life mission, what I had been looking for forever.
That's incredible. And how long have you been doing it, Roxana?
That was 94.
Wow.
A couple years.
And it's been a couple days, fair enough. And they have the same passion today. That's incredible. So tell us a little bit about some of the struggles you faced along the way.
So some of the struggles along the way, midwifery is a demanding life. A lot of times women come to me and they'll say, hey, I would love to be a midwife. And I remind them that midwifery calls to many. The romanticism of midwifery calls to many. The reality of midwifery filters them out.
Mm,
So a lot of people come into the work with me, and very few actually finish.
I can only imagine.
It's a very demanding life, right? I'm on call 24/7, 365.
Wow.
So unless I deliberately set aside time to go away.
Right. Which you recently went on, you did that recently went on a trip, didn't you?
I did.
Will you share with us a little bit about that trip?
Are you talking about Texas?
Oh, well, and I'm not actually sure where you're at. It looked like you were with your daughter recently on Facebook. I seen you posted a lot. Was that Texas?
Yes, went down to Texas. I'm a huge Jesus girl, and The Chosen I'm a huge fan. And I had the opportunity to go and be one of the extras with my daughter in Texas.
That's
So
incredible.
it
I'm
was.
sure.
So I had all my clients, they're like, you gotta wait on these babies because I'm gonna be back.
Keep them in for now.
Jesus, hold them.
Right. We'll deal with this when we get back.
Exactly.
That's great. I can only imagine. So tell us a little bit about the journey take us through whatever you're comfortable in sharing. 23 years old. What does it look like meeting your husband, and that journey to where you became a widow?
So meeting my husband, my best friend called me and asked me to be her maid of honor. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I had this impression that I was marrying the best man. So I met her fiance, super cool, cute guy, funny. I met the best man, and I'm like, oh no, he's not my type. And um, but he won me over because he was just kind, and he was funny, and he was smart, and he was wise, and we had a lot in common actually. And when he proposed, I said yes, and we got married. And it was like marrying my Prince Charming. It wasn't like marrying my Prince Charming. He was my Prince Charming. And we were married 14 years. I remember the date and time. The first time he said no to me. Happy wife, happy life. That was his mantra. And anything he did to keep me happy, that was game in. He was all in.
That's incredible.
As a matter of fact, I remember one day when we were dating, he took me to the movie and we watched the movie Ghost, right, with Patrick Swayze forever ago. And as we walked out of the movie theater, tears were streaming down his cheeks. And I'm like, what's up? And he's like, I love you so much.
Wow.
I feel like that's the amount of love I have for you. Even if I wasn't here afterwards, I would still be here for you.
Wow.
And I was like, who loves anybody that much, right?
That's incredible.
And I mean, just to give you an idea of the kind of man he is, he's a huge baseball fan. San Francisco Giants go all the way. He took me to a San Francisco Giants game. Bottom of the ninth inning, they're playing the Dodgers. That was my team because I'm an LA girl. And I have a splitting headache and I'm just like curled up in the seat. And he's like, what's going on? And he's like, and I'm just like, I've got this really raging headache and I can't think, I can't do anything. He left the game, Greg.
Wow.
And went and got me Advil and a 32-ounce Coke. He left the game at the bottom of the ninth inning.
Wow.
It's like, how could I not love him back? Right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so that's the kind of guy I married. That's the man I married. And he was a gentleman. And when I found out that school started on Wednesday, I didn't even ask my husband. I just said, hey, we're in Utah. There's a midwifery school. It starts on Wednesday. He's like, okay, what do I need to do to help you for that?
That's incredible.
And like I said, midwifery is demanding. I'm gone. I was gone on my birthday. I was gone on his birthday. I've been gone on every holiday, all of my kids' birthdays. Christmas mornings when I'd come home, he'd be like, girls, we're going to open presents after mom has gotten a nap. And he was my backbone for midwifery. Wow. He, when midwifery got hard and I didn't want to do it anymore, he'd be like, it's okay. Go take a nap. Get up and do this again. And
that is incredible.
It is. It is. It takes a special caliber of a man to be able to do that repeatedly. And
absolutely.
We're having children. We're raising children. And he's covering while I'm gone. And whenever, especially when I first became a midwife and that call would come and I'm like, ooh, all hands on deck. It's me in the driver's seat. And I was so shaky. He would just kind of hold my hands and he'd pray with me and he'd be like, this is what you were born to do.
That's incredible.
And I get up and I go again. And so it was a great life.
There's something there. He is a great human being. He is a great spiritual being at this point, human being. There's something there in what you're attracting in your life too. You've attracted this life the whole time, and there's something there that's part of you that's really incredible. Well, are you comfortable sharing about what took place around losing your husband?
Yeah, you bet. So my baby's born. She's 18 now. Shortly after she's born, I'm starting to have these tumultuous feelings where my husband's not well. And there were no external signs of this. This is all going on inside my head and my heart. And I had like a period of about 30 days after my baby was born where I would wake up at night in a cold panic that my husband was gone.
Wow.
And I didn't know what to do with that. Little did I realize that things were starting to spiral downwards. And fast forward several years, probably 10 years, my husband, that had been tremendously supportive and loving, was being altered. And his energy, his emotions, he just wasn't the same man. And during this time, I'm trying to figure out what is going on. What is going on? I knew something was off, but the man would not go to the doctors. He's like, I'm going to die with my boots on, doing what I want to do. There, okay, do you? But the last 2 years became exceptionally challenging as my husband, that had been very patient and calm and endearing, wasn't that way anymore. And as a matter of fact, my kids were like, how long are you going to stay in this marriage? And back to that, dear Lord, what do I do? Can I go? And the answer was stay. Like, what? What do I have inside of me that will enable me to stay? And then that question made such a difference in what I was looking at and what I began searching for. And as I pondered that question day after day, week after week, the answer revealed itself to me. And that answer was this. Shortly after my baby was born, I was sitting in bed and I just finished feeding her and I laid her down and he looked at me with his eyes and he's like, I love you. And I'm like, I love you too, babe. And he's like, no, I love you. And it hung in the air with an energy that was penetrating me in a different way than it had ever penetrated me before. You know, when something lands and it goes deep into the heart and you're feeling it not just through every fiber of your being, but through your DNA. And he said this, he said, even if you were an alcoholic and we were married 9 years, I would still stay with you. I was so bewildered by what he said. I said, hon, I would expect you to take our kids and run because I don't want my kids subjected to that. And he's like, Roxanna, what if I died and I meet God? And he says, why did you give up on year 9? Year 10, she would have turned around. He's like, I'd never be able to live for eternity knowing that I turned my back on you in those final moments. Greg,
Wow.
when I remembered that,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I'm in.
That's
And
powerful.
that was something I could hold on to. That was real. That was meaning. Like we've talked about Viktor Frankel several times. And there was meaning. That gave me my why, my purpose. And I needed it every step of the way. Because the day came when I looked at him and I said, hun, either you and I go to the hospital or I'm driving you or I'm calling the ambulance. And before going in, he's like, I'm afraid if I step in, I'll never come out. And I'm like, you're not going to die on my watch. So the doctor, and the whole time that now we're at the crucible, right? Now we're in the final, and I didn't realize it, but we were in the final days of his life. And through that process, every morning it's what is it that I need today to get through these hours? I knew something was going on with his heart, but couldn't pinpoint it. And the doctor said on the initial tests, no, his heart's fine. I'm like, great. I've never been happier to be so wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran tests. And then the doctor called me the following day after my kids left for church. And the doctor said, your husband has 30% heart function.
Mm.
I'm like, great, let's do open heart. What the doctor didn't tell me is that it was 30% of 30%. So one artery was functioning at 30%. All the rest were clogged.
Oh, wow.
And that made sense as to why he was so altered. But I didn't realize that till months after he passed.
Right.
In that journey, those day-to-day journeys, my question was, what message does my husband need to hear from me today? I was like, during the night, it was a sob session every night. It was I can't live without him. I want to grow old with him. I want to dance into my twilight with him, even as hard as things are. But the ability to stay and walk and smile in the day is what he needed. And so that daily feeding of looking outside the 126 was very intentional. And I didn't know that language at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew that God was telling me that I needed to find something to be happy about.
That's incredible.
Because there's always something to be grateful for. And so that day, I went to the hospital. I'm like, honey, what is one thing we have to be grateful for today? And he's like, I'm still breathing. I'm like, that's right. Greg, I want to back up 1 minute. So the doctor says, your husband has 30% heart function. Great. We can work with that. Hang up. And then when I went to get up to go walk to the hospital, to go out the door to drive to the hospital, I lost strength in my legs and collapsed on the floor and sobbed uncontrollably as my soul knew what was about to happen. My brain refused to believe it, but my soul knew what was happening. And I remembered as I started spiraling downwards and this darkness was enveloping me, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, I couldn't see. And I was like, dear God, help me. I have children I still need to raise. I can't do this alone. I can't do this like this. What can you help me do? And he told me to rise. I couldn't see. And in that moment, I found the strength to get up on my hands and knees and just kind of roll over. And my arms and my legs were so shaky. And I remember, just even now, I still feel a little bit of that left over. But I grabbed on to the counter, and with all the fervor of my soul, I rose. And I told myself, it is my job, it is my duty to get up and walk. Because if he can't, then dang it, I will.
Wow.
I have to be. I chose to hold on to hope in that moment. And as I got out to the car, I'm like, who can I call that can give me hope in this moment? Because it certainly wasn't the doctor. And my friend popped into my head, and I was shaking hands, grabbed my phone and started calling her. And I said, I need you to send me hope in this circumstance. And she gave me words that I couldn't find. So when I got to the hospital, I pulled the doctor aside and I said, listen, I saw my husband and I saw his face and I saw that they had given him the news without me, dang it. I told the doctor, you're not allowed to go back in my husband's room without hope. I don't care whether you believe it or not, you fake it till you make it.
Mm.
And the doctor's like, well, he doesn't have hope. And I'm like, that's not your place to say.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, that warrior wife came out. And it's like, damn you. Who do you think you are? to tell my husband what he can and cannot do. You put your science to the side and let me do my work. And if you're going to come in, you're going to come in with a smile, and you're going to come in believing that there are miracles. And that's all I need from you. You've done your job. And if you can't do it in the manner that I'm asking you to do it anymore, then find someone else to take your role.
Mm.
And from that moment on, it was like, all right, babe, game on. What's our game plan now? You've got some heart function. What are we going to do with that? And long story short, he wasn't a candidate for open heart. They put a stent. The doc said he's got 3 to 5 years. We got 5 days. And it was the first day I went back to work. In the interim of that, one of my clients was having some challenges at the end of her pregnancy. And as I'm asking God, where do you want me? What do you want me to do? He's like, you need to go take care of this mom. Okay. And it was an incredible experience. Birth is a spiritual event.
Mm-hmm.
And when women recognize it, it is transformative. And to have that be my work, I had no idea in what manner it would impact my husband in his transformation from life to beyond. But it was instrumental, because what I gained as I experienced that birth with my client was so impactful for me. And when I went back home, it allowed me to share that with my husband. It allowed me to share hope. It allowed me to share light. It allowed me to share a silver lining in gratitude. And I remember as I drove away from the birth, it was this, like one of those super moons. And it was in the winter and there was snow falling on the ground. It was magical, Greg. And
It's incredible.
it just, like Viktor Frankel, he says, if you find meaning, you can find meaning where you look for it. And I found that night. It was a tender mercy. After my husband passed, many people commented to me that they thought I was happy that my husband died. And I'm like, oh.
Mm.
Because I have a smile, you do not know the story behind the smile. But I finished my work. My husband passed. He was not alone in the respect that he knew that I was still beside him. And I can live with that forever in joy. I can live knowing that he knew that I had his back to the end.
That's
As
incredible.
tumultuous as it was.
Yeah.
But because those golden nuggets on the path strengthened me, it allowed me to finish the work that I had with him.
I can only imagine. Tell me a little bit about, you have a deep, from what I know of you and from everyone listening today, you can probably tell just from listening to Roxanna's words, a very deep spiritual calling and someone that is absolutely filled with hope, positivity, and love. I've got to experience, interact, and encounter and cross paths with you in person, and these are incredible, incredible traits. What can you share with us around the days, weeks, months after the passing of your husband? What did healing look like for you in the earlier time, and what does healing look like now for you?
Those initial days and weeks, I would wake up because I couldn't sleep right. I'd wake up like at 3 o'clock in the morning. I still had children at home. My daughters were 14 and 16. And I wanted to be strong for them. And that meant that I needed to figure out how to be strong for myself. So I would go downstairs in the basement and I would sob uncontrollably into a pillow for a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm.
while I begged God to give me the strength to get up and walk again, like I did in the kitchen that day. Being able to get up and walk in that moment gave
Mm-hmm.
me the capacity to continue to get up and walk those following days. But they were long days. And it's like a friend of mine asked me, she goes, Roxanna, in what ways have you grown spiritually through this? What has been your biggest anchor? And for me, it's like prayer. And she goes, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh, but this is like the prayer of a drowning person. I told God, anytime you want me to get out of the ship and walk, I'll walk. But this time I was drowning
Yeah.
and I couldn't see. And so I stayed on my knees, praying, sobbing uncontrollably till I found the strength. And usually by 7 o'clock in the morning, my eyes were no longer bloodshot. I was able to get my kids up to go and do what they needed to do for the day. And I put on a smile.
Mm-hmm.
And like, interestingly enough, right before my husband's passing, I happened to take a training for work about EMDR, which is a lot of therapists use in their work. And I think they're striving to accomplish what we do with NLP
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and line therapy, and it's been very beneficial. And so I was able to integrate those techniques and teach them to my children. And I remember as I was talking to people, telling them that we needed to postpone bills or do things, I happened to talk to one lady that was very compassionate. And she said, as I told her, I said, I don't know what to do right now. My husband was in charge of some of these things. But I just need to call you and let you know that he's passed away. And she's like, my husband passed away 4 years ago. And I remember thinking, what's it going to be like in 4 years when he's passed?
Mm.
Because she was happy. And
Mm-hmm.
she was talking about how she was remarried. And I was just like, whoa, not there.
Right.
And now here I am 4 years later. And the relationship that my kids had with my husband when he passed was very rocky. And um, it's been a lot of bringing my family back together, bringing them in a manner that they know that I have their back. That just because I'm mom and only mom doesn't mean I'm any less as a parent. Being a parent became challenging in definitely some new ways. Being a midwife, my kids have all been raised with midwifery because I was on the midwife's path before I had any children, which has been really helpful. But putting certain things in place so that they would be taken care of while I was gone. They knew
Mm-hmm.
how to take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my thoughts on a day-to-day basis went from how am I going to do this to I just need to breathe right now. I need to remember the skill of what is the one thing that I need to focus on today. Everything else can fall by the wayside. Nothing else mattered beyond that one thing.
Smart. That's smart. I mean, we all can learn from that, whether we're in a traumatic time or not.
Yeah.
I believe there's always at any given time there's that one thing that really we need to work on, and all the other pieces kind of become obsolete when we really nail this one thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me, share a little
Exactly.
bit around EMDR, the modality of EMDR. What was your personal experience with it, and then personal positive experiences or lack thereof, if that would be the scenario. And then what about with your kids as well? For everyone listening, as Roxanna mentioned, EMDR is a modality of therapy. I've used it in the past with for wartime trauma and childhood trauma, and I found it to be a very, very beneficial modality. It was the year was 2007 when I participated with I was working with a therapist, or they were working with me. I found it to be very, very beneficial. And just out of curiosity, how did that? Could you share a little bit around what benefits
Yeah,
you guys seen?
you bet. The technique that I learned that was most effective for me was the butterfly technique and rocking back and forth. And I did that every night as I went to bed after my kids were in bed. That helped calm me down for sleep.
Mm.
Um, and as I did EMDR with my girlfriend who's a therapist, um, I process really easily. I want to let go of things. I want to see what I need to see and learn from it and move on. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it was let's get in, let's get this done, let's move on. My kids were like, we won't do that again.
Okay.
And it really wasn't on my kids' part for 2 years, 3 years, that things really started showing. And I didn't realize that they were like, we'll be strong for mom.
Mm.
I have learned so much since my kids have passed. Sorry, since my husband has passed,
Mm.
as to how I would, if I could go back and do things differently, I would do them very differently. And I can't. That's what I've loved about timeline therapy. That's what I've loved about NLP, because the tools that I've gained from NLP have taught me how I can more effectively communicate with my children and process them unknowingly in the moment.
How did
And
you?
just,
Oh, go ahead.
just to give them space and hold space.
Out of curiosity, how did you? So the modality of NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and we're also discussing for those listening timeline therapy. Obviously, it's something you guys hear a lot from me. And Roxanna and I both went through a course together at the trainer's level. Now, before the trainer's level, there's a practitioner and master practitioner level. Roxanna, how did NLP become part of your reality? When did that enter into your reality, or the awareness that it even existed as a modality?
Oh, drum roll, please. So the week I got married, my mom missed our reception with permission. She said, Rocky, I found this training that I really feel is instrumental for me and what my next step is, but it's the weekend of your reception.
No way.
Are you okay if I go to it? Greg, I came across the certificate that was signed the weekend of my wedding. It was an NLP training signed by Richard Bandler himself.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So those trainings that my mom was taking back then were instrumental in she and I reconnecting. And so I had an introduction from a very early start.
Mm.
And remember how I said that God is really good to me? And I find as we search for meaning, it reveals itself.
Yeah.
So I lost my husband in March of 2018. I lost my dad in January of 2019. I lost my mom March of 2019.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so rapid fire, and they were my backbone. So here I am going through my parents' stuff, going, Mom, you had a wealth of information. I can't hold on to this, but I want to. What do I do? And she came to me and she said, Mom, Rocky, Saya is what she would call me. She's like, this was my learning. When it's your turn, it will come and you will not need my things. Let them go.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, Mama, I'll let them go. And I was
Wow.
free. I did.
That's
Not
powerful.
6 months later, a gal calls me and says, hey, I need a midwife. I'm due in a few weeks. And I'm like, okay, you bet. So tell me, what is it that you do? And she's like, I'm an NLP trainer. I'm like, you're what?
Lean in a little bit. What?
I'm like, oh, hun, you're not paying me. We're going to trade. And that's how I got my first class paid for halfway as I raised the rest of the money. And it came at the right time in my life. I was ready to jump in full force. I was ready for a new way of thinking. I was ready to add more tools to the tools that I had been gifted through life.
Mm-hmm.
And those tools, it allowed me to do taxes. It allowed me, that training changed, that initial practitioner's training changed my life. Even though I had gotten through day to day since my husband and then my parents passing, honestly, when my mom died, I did CPR on my husband. I was there with my dad as he passed, and I did CPR as my mom collapsed in my arms.
Wow.
And to be able to go from that to feeling alone, like my sweet client, she calls and she goes, so how's it feel to be a widow and an orphan?
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, I love you so much. It's time
Yeah.
to go.
Oh my gosh.
And I know she was well-meaning. She was just concerned
Yeah.
about me,
Yeah.
but way to just go for the jugular. And but that really was how I felt. I felt
Mm.
so alone, alone. And when my client came into my life, taking that training was my relationship with my children at that point was really struggling. And it gave me tools to begin to connect with my children. It gave me tools to begin to go, my heart can be okay through all of this. My heart is strong. I can be resilient. I can be flexible. I can look at their map and go, what's the territory behind it? What is their life going through?
Wow.
What is it that they need their mom to be now? They've
How
been
em-
strong.
how empowering did it feel for you when you had those tools and you had those realizations?
I called my instructor. She was no longer my client. I called my trainer. And I'm like, you need to know what just happened and how my daughter and I are now communicating. Has it been rocky? Sure. We have beliefs and ideas and things that we hold important. And her values had shifted so far from mine because I was so gone. But through the years, we're able to talk. She knows I love her.
Mm,
She calls me mama again. All my
that's
kids
so
do.
sweet.
That is what NLP and timeline therapy has done back for me. It's given me my children back. And even if I
Wow.
don't have my parents or my husband, I have God, I have me, I have amazing friends, I have a great life.
That's
And I say,
incredible. Well, you're a great person and you have a great life. I'm gonna suggest this. Everyone listening, it's all we all have our suggestions, our beliefs, our thoughts, so on and so forth. But for everyone listening, I believe Roxanna is an amazing person and she has a great life because she has eyes to see a great life, because she has a heart to feel a great life. You've created you're a very humble person and that's an exceptional trait. You have created your life up to this part, and the only truth is, all of us have. Everyone listening has too. And it's incredible to. I've heard more about your journey today than I've ever heard before. I knew there was more back there, but I didn't know what it was. And it's incredible to hear what you've been through, and then listening the entire time. Your faith was never shaken, and that it seems to be. This is just me offering my feedback from what I heard, but it seems to be at no point in time that your faith was always a rock for you the whole entire time, all the way through the journey, and it's never been shaken. And that seems like that's been a source of strength for you through it all.
yes, very much so.
How quickly? So when you got done, just out of curiosity, when I get done my practitioner training, I had a few aha moments. I mean, it's just simply as I tell people, it's an awakening. It's a realization. You just have like
Yeah,
it's like an
ever.
aha moment after aha moment of like just the biggest realization. I mean, the biggest realization of we are creating our life, like everything that's around us that is us. Um, how quickly after did you dive into from practitioner to master practitioner and then into the trainer's level?
Um, because of the pandemic in 2020, that got bumped. So it took me a year to get to the master.
And then did
And
you go right to trainer's training after
that was
that?
December. So trainer's training was like 8, 9 months later.
Cool.
So it's been every year I've had an element of journey. So
And how has since going through the trainer level, which it's very, very, very for everyone listening in, what does that mean?
yeah,
I don't know how many hours that means we put in study and in practice, but but a
hundreds.
lot of long nights of studying too.
Well, so let's
Um,
Yeah.
But at the trainer's level, it's a really, really deep dive. Like at the practitioner level, you're literally it's a deep dive. But at the trainer level, it's an even deeper dive. What kind of what changes, what positive changes have taken place since that level in your life?
Oh, Greg, drum roll. Silver linings just keep getting better. I see them more. The ability, before I felt like I had to consciously think about how I wanted to
Mm,
uplift people around me.
mm,
And now I notice that it just flows effortlessly. I
wow.
see the golden nuggets in people more easily. And the people that I'm attracting in my life, I mean, I've always felt like, especially as in my work as a midwife, one of the gems that a mentor from years ago said to me was work with people that you want to work with and that want to work with you. It
That's
makes
right.
a significant difference in my work when we're on the same page, when we're vibing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus when we're not. And if we're not vibing, we don't work. And that's totally fine. There's so many other midwives or birth workers that can serve them and that I want them to serve them so that they have their best experience.
I
But
love that.
here now, it's like, oh, the transformations that I'm experiencing with moms are occurring before they ever go into labor. So when they have their birth is now the transformative experience that it was meant to be, to take a
Mhm.
woman from a maiden into a mother. And for those women to go, that wasn't a traumatic birth. That was an empowering birth. If I can do that, what else can I do?
Wow.
Like, I'm just going to just drop 2 seconds here, especially as we're coming through the pandemic. I had a mom I just met as I went and did a postpartum visit on her. I was not her midwife, but I was supporting that midwife and I did the postpartum. And the lady happened to do her delivery by herself. And she's like, I can't believe I did that by myself. And I'm like, if you did something that you could not believe that you could do in such an incredible manner with such miraculous results, what else are you going to do?
That's it.
That's it. And she sat with it, and you could see her shift, and she's like, what else am I going to do? And it's just like that, just
That's
like that.
incredible.
And so, and to have some really cool people show up in my life recently, it's like magic.
It is, and it
I'm
really
just so
it
excited.
yes, I actually I told my son's 15, and I actually had a conversation. Oh, well, my wife and I think my other son was there, and I was having a conversation, and I forget how it got to this point, but I told him, I said, how whatever it got to this point, I said, we're all actually capable of magic. And he said,
Yes.
what do you mean? And I told him that when he reads The Structure of Magic by by who's that? Is that
The
one
man
Bandler?
Bandler.
Yeah, I said when you read part one of that book, I said then I'll tell you the rest. That's what I told him. I left him with that open loop. But we are all capable of what we label, what the word we use of is magic. We're all actually capable of it. We just don't.
Absolutely.
No, sometimes we don't pay attention to tune into it. So let me ask you: do you have Roxanne? Do you have a website?
Nope.
Good.
Maybe I
Do
need
you,
to work on that one next.
mm, only if you decide. Only if, yeah, yeah, yeah. Only if that works
Yeah.
for you. But is there any, what's the best way, social media, email, for the people that were listening today? Maybe people want to connect with you more to learn about midwifery, or did I say that word right? Midwifery?
Yeah.
Or
Midwifery, tomato, tomato.
okay, okay, I was close enough. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Maybe people want to learn more about that, or maybe they just connect it with your story and want to connect with you a little bit deeper. What's the best way for people to reach out to you or to connect with you?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, Greg, I don't have an immediate answer for that, but I will work on one.
No, no,
I
no.
have an Instagram page. It's called My Midwife Moments.
Perfect. So you guys can reach out to Roxana on Instagram, and they can do
My
message
Midwife.
on there. My Midwife Moments.
Correct.
Awesome. And we'll get to make sure that that's at the bottom of the screen for everybody to contact. So let me ask you this as we start to get to wrap up. I want to ask you, just give you an opportunity to really just give you your final thoughts to everyone. And for those that are one chapter behind where you're at, and whatever that may be, for those that are one chapter behind, for those that might not be able to see their way into that next chapter yet, what words do you share with them around continuing on the mission?
Number one, find the meaning. Breathe as you search for it. One step. So that's step number 3, one step at a time. Search for the meaning. Do it one breath at a time, one step at a time.
That's incredible. I love it. And for those that Roxanna's a few times thrown out the name Viktor Frankel. If you've not studied any of his learnings, you can just Google the gentleman. He was an Auschwitz survivor. He's written a couple books, and he's done some much more incredible things than just writing books. But his books are Man's Search for Meaning, and I believe that another one, the two that I've read from him, is Man's Search for Meaning, and I believe it's Man's Will for Meaning.
Yeah.
And both is very, very way ahead of his time. He had a saying that said, that stuck with me heavily. He said that suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds meaning. And one of the things that were huge for me, and that I've truly integrated, and there's techniques and tools inside of NLP, but even before I ever learned NLP and I had no clue what I was doing, things that I'd integrated, he talks about how, and this is just my extraction from the book. When you read the book, you'll get your own. He doesn't. I'm not quoting the gentleman, but that during some of the worst times in Auschwitz, and I can't even imagine. I don't have perspective to actually imagine what it was like. But people dying to his left and right, and his what we all would look at as suffering and what is suffering, he managed to cease the suffering by giving meaning. He was visualizing what the lesson is that he was learning, that he was going to teach others in the future.
Yes.
And he was given meaning to his suffering while it was taking place.
Yes.
How smart and how strong of a human was he?
That was a really pivotal book, because I had read that book before my husband passed. So his words were in my mind as I was going through all of that.
Somebody introduced me 2000, maybe it was like 16, maybe around there. I don't know. Someone told me, like, have you read any Viktor Frankl? And I really a lot of this was repeated a few times with a couple books in my life. I kind of blew it off. It didn't sound cool enough at the time. It didn't, it's like, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I've already read the books. And then when I finally read it, I was like, oh my gosh, why did I wait 3 years to read this? Yeah, very, very powerful reading. Well, I appreciate getting to have you on today, Roxanna, and I really appreciate everything you shared. I know your story is going to reach someone. You may or may not ever get to cross paths with the person that you're going to change their life, but someone listening to this story is going to have their life changed in a very positive and powerful way because of what you shared today. I appreciate you being on and sharing.
Can I wrap up what I said differently?
Please. Please.
So it would be, this is midwife speak, right? We do things one breath at a time, one step at a time, as we search for meaning.
As we search for meaning.
We do things one breath at a time, one step at a time, as we search for meaning.
That's incredible.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you so much. If you guys are listening to the audio, check us out on YouTube. It's Success After Trauma. Like and subscribe to our channel so you can notify when new episodes are coming out. And make sure you share this with your friends so that we can reach more people and impact more lives. You can download us on your favorite podcast streaming platform. Be great. It's already in you.